Super, thanks very much. My name is Briget and I'm from Plant and Food Research. I'm based in Auckland. Thanks for coming along, I guess. When I saw that one of the pillars was around capability development and communities of practice, I kind of thought, well, that's a really good opportunity to come and talk to you about our Data Stewards network, which is a grassroots network that provides data management support to our scientists. So very quickly, a little bit about Plant Food. So we are a Crown Research Institute today, one of the bigger ones. We have some more than 650 research staff at 14 sites up and down New Zealand. So, maybe compared to a university, we're a bit small, but as a science research institute, we do cover a lot of ground. We work with a number of different sectors, including seafood, which some of you might not know. And our capabilities are really broad, which means that we collect a whole ton of different types of data, and we do a whole ton of different sorts of analyses and so forth, which makes managing that pretty interesting. A little bit of backstory here. So the establishment of our Data Steward Network really kind of started back in 2013 when we had a new chief scientist started, and he really understood the value of projectizing some of the dark hours that went into improving the way we did our science. So there were scientists out there trying to do things better, but it was really hard without any funding. So Richard came along and said, well, if you projectize it, bring it into the light, we'll probably get a bit further. So the first of those projects was in 2014, and it was a organisation-wide data management review. And one of the really important outputs of that project was our first ever policy. So we had a research data management policy, and I believe there was a lot of input from Manaki Whenua at that stage. So thank you to those people. So then we looked about how we were going to implement the policy. And our first thoughts were approaching it as kind of a compliance idea, so much like health and safety rules or biosafety, which is a big thing for us. And funnily enough, it wasn't really received very well in that mode. So we changed the approach to be one more around supporting scientists to do the right thing. So not just another set of rules, but actually a culture change. And so this was the focus of that project then in 2018, where the Data Steward Network was established. And it was established as a grassroots kind of ground-up network, people in individual science teams. And we began a 2-year trial, and we wrote a role description, and we recruited people, and we brought them together in a series of 2-day face-to-face workshops. It was 2018, back when we did that kind of thing. So why did we think that the grassroots approach was going to be the right one? I think the most important point here is that that model really allowed us to acknowledge the variability in the data types, the ways we work, in our personalities, in the team cultures, all of that variability that was going on. It was pretty clear that trying to find a one size that would fit all was probably not going to work very well. So ground-up approach. We really wanted that individual engagement with those good data management principles. So we had our chief scientist on board, and we had our policy in place, and we had those messages on high, but we really needed to get those individual scientists understanding it and kind of living it. And then we thought that grassroots model would be good for that. And we were after culture change, and that really requires a deep understanding of team cultures. We're kind of quasi-academic, quasi-commercial, quasi-government. We've got a very creative workforce, and that's their real strength. They don't like being told how to work, so we need to understand how they work, and then figure out how those good data management principles apply in that scenario. Again, the opposite of a one-size-fits-all. So our definition in PFR of a data steward is probably a bit different from how that term is used outside in the real world. So our data stewards aren't people who look after data sets. we have around 80 of our data stewards in roles, one in each science team, so it's quite a big number of people. Their role is to help and advise their teammates. So they don't do the data administration or the data management for the team, and that's really, really important. So it's a help and advisory role so that everybody's practice improves. Everyone has responsibility for their own data management. They keep data management in the conversation, which is a lot of data stewards just very simply have a standing item on the team meeting agenda that says data management. Every time the team gets together, there's a very low bar opportunity for anyone to kind of chip in queries or concerns or new things. And as one data steward told me, there is never nothing to discuss. So if it's there, tell us about it. They model good practice. So they get extra training, they get extra connections, they hear about new tools, reminders of the expectations in the policy, and so they're able to understand what is the expectation and then to model that within their team. They are champions for change. And a really good example of that is rolling out our M365 implementation over the last couple of years. So our data stewards are a really key group. They got extra communications about the project, they got extra training, and then they sat beside their teammates using these new tools, hearing what was working well and not, and then feeding that back up to the project. So they were really, really useful in that. They've become a reference point for feedback across the whole organisation. Actually, we didn't kind of think that that was going to be their role. They are ready and willing, generally, to participate, to give feedback, to fill in that survey, to talk with their team about something and then raise the issues upwards. So they're a very good reference point for lots of projects in the organisation. So, but what they actually do, well, this is a slide I put together, one of the tools to communicate actually upwards to our GMs where the value is in these data stewards. I don't know if you can even read all that, but they do induction. So when there are new people in the team, they do data induction. At the end of someone's career, they'll help them go through our levers checklist to reduce the data loss. They will organise training for their team. They will encourage metadata collection. They'll encourage use of templates. They might create a template. They're always thinking of ways to improve the data collection and data analysis, making sure people store it in the right place, all of those things. It is a formally recognised role, and I think this is really important. So it's a part-time role. It's in addition to their science role, and it's a very small part of their science role. So it's like a health and safety rep or a lab manager type role in that regard. We have a very teeny tiny but very, very important formal time allocation, so 0.05 of an FTE, very roughly a day a month. But that's really important for a team leader who's trying to organise and the whole team budget and to allow for someone to have their focus on data management. And they can, if they wish, get some sort of formal recognition of their role in our standard performance review process. So data stewards are part of a network across the whole organisation, and there's two mechanisms to build up that network. One is Viva Engage. I'm still getting my head around that new term. It's Yammer, and that's simply all of the current data stewards, so roughly about 80, but basically new data stewards join that community, but they never leave. So now we're kind of up to about 250 people in that community where we can ask questions and propose solutions and share good ideas. We had some diary templates go up there the other day. There's an endless conversation about managing freezer samples. I didn't know that was such a big thing, but it is. And there's lots of good ideas to solving similar problems, so it's really good. The other way we build networking is quarterly meetings. So most of the time we meet on a site-by-site basis. So I'll get all the data stewards together up Amstel North, for example, and they'll be all in a meeting room and I will Zoom in. And it's quite time-consuming. So every quarter I hold 6 meetings. It covers all of our different sites. So it is time-consuming, but it's really important in building the connections between people. So people meeting in rooms, taking an hour out of their day and sharing best practice, asking questions, getting updates from me. We do often have a guest speaker that comes in and talks about something that's a topical kind of thing in our organisation too. And then once a year, we get the data stewards together on a portfolio basis. So that's kind of our big departments or science domains. And so that's a different bunch of data stewards together in a meeting. We invite the GM along. The GM says why data is so important to the portfolio and how wonderful your data stewards are, and thank you very much. And then the data stewards do kind of a round table and let the GM know what they're doing and how they're providing all that value. So really important communication vehicle, that one.
Sure.
A quick slide here about where data stewards fit. They're not the only ones who do data management at PFR. So we have data stewards, one in each science team, helping and advising, not doing the data management. We have data custodians, one per project, and that is a person who is much more hands-on in data administration within the project. We have a bunch of application specialists who are specialists in a tool. So we have an application specialist for our chemistry database and our breeding database and for GitHub and those sorts of things. They provide user support for those tools and they're expert users themselves. And then me, I have this terrible job title of the Science Data Facilitator. It's a bit of a mouthful, but my big part of my job is to build and nurture this data steward community. So why do I reckon it's successful? I think the most important thing is that our data stewards are local. So they're local and they're trusted and they sit beside their teammates and they know their team leader. They know the pain points and the realities of, the type of research they're doing, and that's really important. And they know the personalities as well. We've got a mix of experience and seniority within the network. So we've got some data stewards who are the OGs, the originals from 2018. So they've been doing this for a long time, and they're still enjoying it and still doing that role. Even when they move teams, they'll keep that role. We have some team leaders themselves who take on the data steward role. They really like to have that, to be kept up to date and in the loop with what people are talking about in terms of data management. And then we've got a lot of new staff and juniors as well. So it's a real mix there. The data stewards, I think, see the role, they get out of it very different things. So what do they get out of it? If you are a senior scientist but you're not into managing people, we've got lots of those. We kind of pitched the role initially as a bit of a leadership opportunity. If you don't want to try to show some leadership within the team, then taking on this role is one of those ways without getting people management. For someone who's new in the business, being part of this network is a really good networking opportunity. You hear about all sorts of things going on in the organisation and actually meeting people. And for new scientists, junior scientists, then it's a really good development opportunity as well. It's successful because the team leaders value it, and I think that's evidenced by the fact that when someone leaves the role, they're almost always replaced. Sometimes I need to chase people up, find a replacement, but almost always they're replaced. And then there's the sustained ongoing effort building and nurturing the network itself, but also at communicating the value. So upwards communications to group leaders and GMs, and then outwards to with our internal news and the all company feeds. So that needs to go on, and I'm always trying to do more of it. There are some challenges. So we do get a few team leaders who just still aren't quite getting the memo, but really it's about, I don't know, I think we've got 6 or 7 teams that do not have data stewards at the moment. So it's rare, but there are some. So I head along to their kind of group meetings and their senior leadership meetings and tell all the other team leaders how wonderful their team leaders are. And the message does filter down to team leaders. So I've had some new ones join in recently. Younger data stewards can really struggle to have influence in making change with how people work, particularly, obviously, if they don't have team leader support. Some data stewards are just overcommitted, so you probably know those people who take this role on and then they take the health and safety role and the lab manager and they're the social club. So we get a few people like that, and sometimes we need to just share that role around and make sure, and then they go and do a PhD. So we need to share that role around within team members sometimes. And then we just get some data stewards who are less engaged. So can't do much about that except pursue them and organise one-on-ones with them, talk to the team leader, see if there's a change needed there. Right, so for the future, there is actually still a lot of scope for improvement in the way we manage data at PFR, long way to go. But the data stewards are going to be an essential part to any future changes that we make. So we're just setting up a Māori data governance policy within PFR, and they are right in there in the proposal as a useful resource. Data stewards will help us to understand what the issues are and concerns of scientists when we're making this change. And when we have a policy in place, they will help us to implement that. So the current model is working really well for us. It's very flexible, and to be honest, we're not looking to make any changes anytime soon. And that's about it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Briget. We've got about 5 minutes for questions, maybe a little less.
Amazing. Love it. We wanted to do something really similar at the University of Auckland. Money's tight was the answer. I think that what you guys have done within your CRI has probably beat everybody within New Zealand to it. We have followed you. We've done different things in different ways, but I'm really impressed. Not really a question.
Is there a question?
No, not really a question. Just love.
So with that compliment, we move around the room. I'm getting my exercise.
I'll follow on from Laura and ask a question from the University of Auckland. Yvette, again, I think it's amazing. Well done. How did you manage to get the buy-in, or did you have any challenges with getting the buy-in for actually having that partial sort of FTE service role?
You know, there's no question that having chief scientists support and his understanding, as I said, of turning the kind of soft stuff or the dark hours into something very concrete is really, really important. I do wonder that myself, because I've worked in other roles where we've tried to get that formal thing and it just doesn't happen. It's too hard and no one will agree. But I don't know, the stars must have aligned. Personalities are really important. We had an amazing data science group leader at the time. She was really influential. I wish sorry.
Same comment, I think, is a great model. I've kind of had a similar model for Manaki Whenua, which I haven't managed to implement.
Sure.
So the data stewards, do they get time to sort of look at what are the best practices in the domains to bring those in, or is it very just inward focused?
They do have scope for that. Yep. Definitely some of our data stewards apply their role to that kind of thing. And so they'll be ones to looking at the working between groups and introducing a new tool, those sorts of things. AI tools, digital first tools and sensors, and data stewards can be really engaged in that. But I think a lot of them are helping us implement what we want them to do. So a bit more passive, I guess.
So Briget, in Europe, the data stewards are a profession and they do qualifications and all that sort of stuff. Maybe a slightly different role, perhaps, in terms of the way you described it. If I were putting a university perspective, what would you be looking for us to do better in terms of training our students to prepare them for these kinds of roles? What do you think about that?
To prepare them for this kind of role? Or teach them about data management. I know you try, and it's hard to get them along. But I'm always quite amazed at when our new guys start that they haven't come across a data management plan. They storing their data on their own machine because it's their data. And I think that's partly a product of how we offer these qualifications. You've been a PhD student for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and it's been all about you and your expertise and your data. And suddenly you're thrown into a CRI where we want you to start thinking about your data as actually part of a much bigger picture, and it's not all about you. And you're an expert, but there's other experts that you should be working for, and it's quite a mind shift.
Yeah, no, clearly we have to improve the culture in that respect. But I was also wondering about specific skills and so on that might be needed that you've discovered.
For people coming out of university.
Yes, things that we could give them as part of it, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know how you at universities cover some basics or fundamentals. Obviously, this stuff applies to whatever your discipline. So I've got a kid who's just starting at university, and they are doing a compulsory course about science, Manaki, Tainga and treaty and things. And I'm thinking there is some...
I mean, we have one at Canterbury as well, but it's at first year level.
So it's kind of
It's not at a level where they engage with research at all. So it's an interesting problem.
So when you introduce it?
It must be later on. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Other answer quickly.
I just think that one of the things that we could leverage there is people's interest and undergraduate interest and need to learn about artificial intelligence. One of the things that we could do there is to up literacy around data governance and then pile in a few things there.
So, thank you, Briget.